Hello, everyone. My name is John Trent, the editor-in-chief at Bounding Into Comics. Welcome to Trek Tuesdays. I am joined by my beautiful co-hosts, Donald Edmonds and Jorge, the Armored Otter, Arenas.
How is Too many doing? Compliments already.
Yeah, beautiful. It's beautiful. It's such a great compliment. Ryan Johnson likes to throw it out there all the time now. But how are you guys doing today? It's good seeing you guys.
Doing well.
It's an amazing day.
So this is our second episode of Trek Tuesdays. If you joined in with us last Tuesday, we talked about the part 1 and part 2 of The Emissary, the first episode and I guess second episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and we are back now to discuss the second or third. It's listed second on Netflix, but I think it's technically the third. I'm not really sure. I think even the Star Trek fandom wiki page even listed it as a second, and Emissary is technically one episode, even though it's a two-parter. They just combine them.
It's listed weird, yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact they merged the first episode. Well, the first 2 episodes as one episode. So depending where you go, like Wikipedia or something like that, it comes up as like the 3rd or 4th episode. Yeah, episode 4. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh,
you mean episode 4?
What? Yeah, according to Wikipedia, but on Netflix it's episode 3. So it doesn't matter, right? The order, but that's where
right.
It's at. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about
standalone episodes, right?
Yeah, A Man Alone. That's what we're talking about. We're going to be talking about A Man Alone.
There we
go. Just to get that name out there. So we're going to be talking about A Man Alone, and very, very relevant episode considering what is actually happening in the world today. So let's just kind of get into this. What did you got? What were your overall? What was your overall take on this episode, Jorge? And we'll start with you.
Alrighty, I forgot how much of a wannabe player Dr. Bashir was. The first 5 minutes of the episode, I was like, holy crap, this is my entire player book when I was in my late teens and early 20s. What have I done? Like, he just did not let up. I loved it. And poor Dax, she tried her best, right? But
I think he was sexually harassing her, right? That's
in today's standards, he was assaulting her.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
but overall, the episode was a really, really good Star Trek episode because it had a lot of
love bombing her.
Oh, he was definitely love bombing the crap out of her. But as for a Star Trek episode, I think it was, in my opinion, it's one of the best first season Star Trek episodes of any of the franchises because it captured a lot of the elements of Star Trek that you really are looking for, right? The sci-fi, the deep philosophical questions, as we'll get into later, when it comes to mob mentalities and all that. So I fell in love with it again after rewatching it.
Yeah. Don, what was your kind of overall takeaway?
Okay. 1, Bashir was not assaulting. He was thirsty AF. Okay. When I find out a man or a woman is actually a man underneath, I'm out. I'm not that thirsty. Sorry. But yeah, overall good episode. My first viewing of it, I didn't get a sense of the depth of the politics that were involved in it. But when I stepped into it and started taking notes on what was going on, there was a lot of inner turmoil and what's the word I'm looking for? When they admire the person for what they did, even though what they did was wrong by the standards of another society or another culture.
Respect?
Yeah, so there was a lot of respect for this dude who, by any other standard, would have been a criminal. Because of what they did, they did it for their people. But we can get into that later. But it was a deeper thought than a lot of these other shows that refuse to tread anything deeper than a puddle of water.
Yeah, I mean, so as I mentioned earlier, I think this episode was extremely relevant to what's going on. Jorge kind of touched on it. There's some mob violence that happens. There's I thought Cisco's speech during when he's dispersing the crowd was phenomenal, really interesting. I think his discussions with Major Kira were also interesting. He saw kind of the repercussions of that decision, what was happening with Odo because Cisco made the decision to remove Odo. So you get to see a lot of how all these decisions kind of led to one another. You could even argue that Cisco's decision to put Odo off the case inspired the mob. That might be a little bit too far, but you could say that that is a possibility.
But it was a hard choice for him to make, though, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought he seemed like he made it pretty easily to me. Kira was the one kind of pushing back on that for me. But then I also, so you have this like very deep kind of heavy topic, but then it's contrasted with the light, like, let's build this school, let's have these people like come together, learn about each other, and then Kiko's even like trying to convince Nog's dad on like why it would be better, why she wants her kid to be there, and it's like he could become a better Ferengi because he can exploit people better because he has better knowledge of them, and I thought that was just kind of funny. And then the beginning, like Jorge mentioned, I like that a lot too. It was very good comedic humor with Bashir trying to hit on Dax and getting turned down, and she was using all of her own wiles to turn him down. So I enjoyed that. And then I really probably like we'll get into this later, but I'll probably highlight this a little bit later. But I liked the camaraderie, I guess is the word, between Quark and Odo, which was fun. I like that too. So yeah, I thought this episode was really good. I really enjoyed it. And let's kind of just get into some of that of the nitty gritty of this episode. I think Toxic Manflu's got a question here. Yeah, Barry On is saying it offered a nice insight into the Quark-Odo relationship and helped flesh out what Cisco would do in a crisis. Yeah, I think we got to see Cisco as a leader on board. He was delegating to his subordinates, to Kira, to Odo. He was having to deal with like possibly one of his own subordinates doing something horrible in a murder, and how he would deal with that. And then Toxic Manflu asks, Odo was so arrogant and Cisco rebelling authority a bit and wanting to clean house maybe. I think what Toxic Manflu was talking about is when Odo is talking about, there's this scene after Odo confronts, I didn't write the guy's name down, the Bajoran who murdered the Cardassian and was like thrown into prison, but then was freed because the Bajorans don't care if you murder Cardassians, apparently.
I wonder why.
And so this, I forget what his name was, but he was like something like that. Yeah.
That's not that.
Odo, yeah, I forget what his name was. He started with an I though. But so after he gets in this fight, he wants to kick this guy off the promenade because he's a scumbag and a known criminal, and he doesn't want that type of person there. And then Cisco is like, he hasn't done anything wrong right now. Like, his record shouldn't affect the way we treat him now. And then Odo's like, this isn't justice. Like, I'm going to give him real justice. And which is like, and then he's like, watch me kick him off. And then Cisco was like, no, you will not. Like, or you will be like relieved or I will find someone else. So I thought that was Ibudan. Yes, Ibudan. Jorge's got it there. Why don't you just say that?
Sorry, I had him now full of ramen. My apologies. Yeah, Ibudan.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, John, and I think it really captures the fact that at the time they were still in the process of transferring a lot of the infrastructure from the Cardassian Union to the Federation when the station was Terok Nor and before it became Deep Space Nine. So you had still a lot of that carryover and that mistrust between the new Federation commanders and essentially mostly the Bajoran subordinates, and then Odo, who worked for the Cardassians during the occupation. So a lot of that was where those gears weren't connecting very well because everyone was feeling each other out. Kira, as you mentioned, was pretty much the glue that tried to, bring it all together and see that everyone, for the most part, was on the same page, even though they didn't realize it. So I think that this episode really, captured it really well. That transition that was still going on, we'll see continue on for quite a while with the show.
Yeah, I think so. That was something that we obviously they told us about in the first episode, where the Cardassians had occupied the space station Deep Space Nine, and were using it to kind of exploit Bajor and basically mine that planet's resources for themselves. And then Odo, we find out this episode that Odo was the security officer under the Cardassians as well, and he's maintained that position with the Federation taking over.
Yazi made a really good point in the chat right there, John, where he says, I always thought that Emissary was a show of strength and The Man Alone was a show of authority.
Yes, exactly. It definitely was. And I think that came from not only with Odo trying to kind of, you see it on multiple fronts. So you see it from Sisko, obviously, is where the authority comes from. You see it when he's dealing with Odo in that scene that I was just explaining, where Odo's like, I'm going to take it into my own hands. And Sisko's like, no, you're not. We're going to go through a court of law. And if you decide to take it in your own hands, like you won't be working here anymore. And then you see it when he decides to suspend Odo from his duties. And then again, you see it when he is dispersing the crowd as well. So you see him showing his command capabilities in three different, and I would even say very, three separate occasions that are also very different.
The one thing I like about this episode, aside from everything, was the fact that this was an episodic episode, right? 45 minutes, and it had three different stories inside of it for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Nowadays, people say, "Oh, well, you need an entire season to tell a story." This episode was able to tell three very, very well in a very limited amount of time and good detail. You had the main story, Odo,
the
and
murder mystery,
murder mystery. And then you had another story with the mystery with the clone, right? Dr. Bashir was trying to identify what
science mystery. Yeah,
the science mystery, and then of course the more emotional mystery, mystery, but the more emotional drama where Keiko trying to find her place on the station, where she couldn't be the botanist that she was when she was on the Enterprise D. So where was her place? And she made it very clear she felt out of place where she was, and she didn't have that purpose that she had, before O'Brien got that promotion to DS9.
Right. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about Kiko and O'Brien. And so we kind of, after we get the flirting with Bashir and Dax, we get this scene where they're out on the promenade. Sisko and Dax are having like a dinner, but then you also see O'Brien and Kiko, and they're having an argument. And then we later find out that the argument is about him being deployed to Deep Space Nine. And working in Deep Space Nine.
And it's a great thing to put on a show because, for those who have family that's in the military, that's very common when a spouse gets deployed to a whole other area and then the other spouse has a career, especially if something very specific. It could really screw stuff up for people. If my spouse is in the military and they got stationed in an island, but I'm a botanist that specializes in desert plants, right? That's not going to be good for me. And I can't continue on my career. So it was really cool seeing that actually done on DS9.
So, okay, for Jorge though,
bring it on.
When they're focusing on Keiko and O'Brien, I'm like, wait a minute. I never noticed these two characters on TNG.
Yeah,
it was mostly like Riker. It was mostly like Crusher. It was, all these other characters. There wasn't any time for the engineer, or is that I'm misremembering?
No, you're not really misremembering. Keiko, especially, came up every so often on the Enterprise. The wedding, the birth of their daughter. She was more of a background character for a long time. It wasn't until DS9 as we're seeing right now that her character is flushed out a bit more, just like with Chief O'Brien. Don't get me wrong, O'Brien and TNG got some love, especially towards the latter part of the series. But look, from in my opinion, at least, it looked like the writers recognized this fact with the couple, and they were trying to build a foundation up to expand upon that family a bit more, where they kind of missed the mark in TNG.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, I got to get more mouthfuls in here.
So I guess staying on with Kiko, one of the things I did have an issue with was, and I guess they kind of tried to explain it, is that she seemed kind of like we're talking about, like she was on the Enterprise D, like, so she knew she had been deployed before. O'Brien had been deployed, and she just seemed kind of it's like she wasn't expecting like this type of deployment, which I thought that was just that just kind of like rubbed me a little wrong way. It's like you served on the way I took it is like I assumed she served on the Enterprise D as well. She married a guy, a Federation officer, so she like kind of knew what she was getting into, and I was just like, it kind of seemed weird that she was having that issue for a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I live next to Fort Bliss, right? And I can't tell you how many times and living on post all over, growing up, I can't tell you how many times that people will marry someone in the military and then get shocked that they get deployed somewhere. They're like, wait, we're moving? And you're like, yeah, it's kind of the deal, guys. So I think that's, for me, at least in my experience, it's pretty realistic to see spouses kind of be shocked by that.
Okay, I guess I don't know. My experience is that they're moving like all the time, like quite a bit. So you should.
Well, some people know going in. Other people, they're dense as heck.
Okay, I guess. Right. But so that's the difference, though. She was already on Enterprise D. Was a botanist. Was she also Federation?
I believe she was a scientist. I don't believe she was part of the Federation. I have to look it up. But we also have to keep in mind the context of it all, right? The Enterprise D provides plenty of opportunities for botanists, for scientists to do their job. Deep Space Nine so much, and they mentioned that in the episode when O'Brien's like, we can get you on a shuttle to, to the Gamma Quadrant to explore and do your thing, right? And it's very different. She can't. And he tried to get her, to actually, decorate the promenade with plants, which you can see the annoyance in her face. Like, seriously, right? This is not what I do, man.
Yeah. So and then I thought that was kind of surprising too, that she was kind of against the idea of not necessarily against it, but she kind of wasn't like super gung ho for it.
She wasn't prepared, and it was obvious that remember the Cardassians, before they handed the Deep Space Nine to the Federation, they stripped it. It was bare bones. And throughout the series of Deep Space Nine, poor O'Brien is trying to like jerry rig Cardassian and Federation technology to work together. So at that point of the series, there's really, it was very, very bare bones. So not only was it a stationary place and she lacked amenities, but she wasn't able to really go out there and do her job. So that, I think that compounds everything.
Well, so for me, my takeaway was that I don't think she had a job. Like, she's a trained botanist, but she moved to Deep Space Nine with O'Brien, and she was kind of stuck in limbo. Didn't feel like she had a purpose. He suggests that she take these shuttles that can go through the wormhole, and she's kind of like, not really. It's not like the same as being on the Enterprise D, where we're always on the spaceship. It would be back and forth, and then she kind of says like her daughter wouldn't be there with her. She would most likely be separated from her daughter, which I think that's probably, now that I'm saying this now, I think that's maybe why she was not so enthusiastic about that idea, because on the Enterprise D, her daughter is always there, right? And then,
plus, the Federation flagship was literally the safest, arguably one of the safest places to be in if you're going to be in deep space exploration.
Right. So now I'm convincing myself here that she makes the own suggestion about the school herself, and then O'Brien's like, yeah, sounds like a good idea. which I thought, being a supportive husband, I thought that was a good thing too. So I like that part. Yeah.
You know what I found funny though, that the Federation took over DS9 and they didn't think about kids. So saw like a bunch of the kids were basically acting like mall rats, running around the ring and just causing all kinds of mischief. I thought that was kind of funny too.
Yeah, it had a very 80s, 90s vibe when malls were at their height, I would say. I thought that was quite humorous too when I guess they're aliens because they started changing colors when the bugs got to them.
I think they were Bajorans, if I remember correctly, but when I first saw
I didn't see the ridge in their noses.
You didn't see it? Okay, then I'm wrong.
The people looking down that were like looking at them like, why are they being so hysterical? They were Bajorans, but I didn't notice the ridges on their noses.
It makes me wonder if the bugs cause them to change colors, or if they're like a chameleon and they change colors based off their emotional state.
Yeah, I wasn't. Oh, yeah, I wasn't sure about. They never explained that.
Like, we had to think about that. I wonder, what it is. Because bugs like that exist. Sign me up. I will totally buy a bunch of them.
Yeah, they're called fireflies.
That's what they
bioluminescence.
That bite you and make you change color?
Oh, I always thought the bugs were just changing color while they were crawling around them. But that's.
I thought they were changing color.
They never explained it. I thought, they never explained. I thought it was the bugs causing it too, but
that's the cool thing about Star Trek, though, right? It leaves these little things here and there for us to like spend minutes upon minutes trying to figure out.
Yeah, and different interpretations for sure. But yeah, I like the Kiko storyline a lot. I especially liked when she was trying. I thought that was funny when she was trying to convince Nog's dad to get Nog to come in, and was just like, you can like learn about all these other all these other alien races and cultures, so you can better exploit them. That was like basically her pitch. And then he was like, that sounds interesting, but no, you're a woman. Can't have my son being taught by a woman.
No, it wasn't like I can't have my son being taught by a woman. It's just he's not going to listen to you.
Well, it's also like you're a human.
Yeah, it was a human woman. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Ferengi are very misogynistic, and we'll learn that more later in the series. But they made it very clear. She had two strikes against her: female and human.
Right.
The only thing she didn't have was if she was poor, forget about it. It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. And that is the one thing that we didn't really get any kind of real. They kind of just Nog just shows up. He just brings him there, and it's like, we'll try it for a couple weeks. And there wasn't a real reason why. He just, after like so much like pushback, all of a sudden Nog is now in the classroom.
Did you see when he moved him away from Jake and the look on Sisko's face, like he was about to like make him 2 inches shorter with a punch?
No, I didn't notice that, but I thought that you would have thought that Sisko would have been happy because we had seen previously that we're going to be going nowhere near that Ferengi kid again. He's bad news. I don't want you near him. And there was the insinuation that Sisko did some potentially physical disciplining. Is what it seemed like. They didn't show it, but Jake like went behind the wall and like Sisko charged after him, and they cut the scene.
Hey, never know. He probably strained him out a little bit with some very aggressive hugging.
Yeah, maybe. To me, the implication was that Jake was about to get a spanking, but they obviously didn't show it, so we don't know what actually happened. Just leaves it up to your imagination, right, on how he disciplined him.
Well, it was the 90s.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Sisko didn't have a belt, but he could have replicated one very easily.
Wait, were the replicators working?
Yes.
Oh no, they were on the fritz still, weren't they?
No, they weren't. No, that's not true. O'Brien gives Kiko a bell that he says he got from the replicator.
Oh, okay.
So he had fixed them. One has to assume, right? He's
or
like,
at least fixed one of them?
Yeah, he said, I just replicated this. And then
because the next episode, I think that's the episode where the replicators are slowly getting back up and running.
I mean,
Um,
he's gonna get his own replicator working first. That's just like rule number one of maintenance.
yeah, he's got to give his wife gifts, man.
And Ensign Ricky's right. This is the first Odo centric episode, and probably the first.
Mhm.
It is the first investigation you see him conduct, and it sets the tone for the rest of the series as he goes out and investigates. Because there will be several more of these sort of episodes that come up.
Yeah, so let's kind of get into that. I know we talked about this a little bit. I just want to get back to that. So after this, Odo recognizes this scum Bajoran guy who was already been found guilty of murder, who was also he also is like a immoral scumbag too, where he will like refuse to give life-saving medicine to someone because they don't have enough money. He talks about some other things that make him just kind of immoral. When he's talking to Cisco about like why this guy needs to be kicked off the promenade. And I thought it was really interesting that Odo's argument on with justice. He says laws change depend on who makes them, and that's kind of like saying like, hey, I've had the Cardassians, I've had the Bajorans, and now it's the Federation. Like your laws are all different. It doesn't matter what your laws are. There's still like justice is justice. And then Cisco doesn't give an argument to. He doesn't dispute Odo's argument. He just says that you need to work within the rules of the Federation now, or you're gonna get canned. So I thought that was really interesting.
Well, he made it clear that he recognized Odo's idealism, right, when it came to justice, and it's an ideal. It's a very important ideal. But he also made clear that he himself had, he was in a confine what he can do. He was in a box. And if he's going to be in the box, so is everyone else when it came to what you can and cannot do with the station.
Right. Yeah, I think he also has to, he's a representative of the Federation. And then you have to it's not just this one, incident that he's talking about. If like Cisco allows this to happen, and you can allow other people like kind of to take things into their own hands as well. Kira could like start just doing whatever she wants and not like ignoring him. He has to. I don't want to say he has to set an example, but he has to enforce the rules of the Federation as they are.
And it kind of foreshadows what happened later in the episode with the mob who want to take what they feel is justice into their own hands. And it shows you that what one person's justice can be another person's crime. And that's a very slippery slope one could go down.
Yeah. I think that's a good transition there. So
can we talk about the massage scene though?
Yeah, we can talk about the massage scene.
Okay. Who gets massages like that? Like, unless you go to an illegal place.
I mean, I know a place down.
I bet you do.
So I think we'll find out. So I don't want to like spoil too much, but they tell you that it's not actually a massage; it's a hollow.
Yeah, it's a holodeck.
No, I know.
Holodeck.
I just found it humorous.
And I think it's run by Quark.
Yeah.
Ferengi.
Yeah, Quark has a lot of adult themed content for his
yeah.
One thing I thought was really cool was her webbed hands.
Yeah, I thought that was
someone got rubber gloves and ran through some cheese graters. Like, you're an alien.
Well, I thought that she's an alien, but it's also like her like hands make her specific for massage.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe
they're fingers or something like that, deep tissue. Ensign Ricky, I would totally rent out a holosuite by Quark. It would be out of this world.
I'm sure he can have some specific designs created for you.
I got the ideas. He's got the tech. We can make it work.
Yeah. And then the murder is very kind of by the book. I don't think they actually show the knife going into him. They cut it away.
He just did go down. That's it.
You do
No
see it go
scream,
down.
no nothing. Just
You
Right.
just see it go down, no sound. It just goes down and then black.
Yeah.
Very safe.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess Don, what have you like? I guess I know you talked about the shaky cam on the last one. What was your kind of reaction to how this was filmed?
it's just like putting something into a watermelon. Just can you? That's it. That was it.
Yeah.
Just that low budget stabbing.
But it does the trick though. It gets it across, right? We know that a murder's happening. We can. I mean, do we really need anything more?
I mean, it was stuff like this that made me really appreciate Braveheart when it came out. Just ultra violence, blood, gore, everything that a young boy could hope for. But yeah,
Of course. No, of course we all want that in our lives.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about
politics.
So yeah, let's wait for that. Let's go to
Okay.
let's stick with Odo and his investigation. Because he was leading a very seemingly good investigation. He has the doctors sweep the room, and then he goes to investigate Ibadan's ship and the ship log, and discovers that his name was on the meeting log on there. And then he
investigation. He went bam, bam, bam. You know, step 1 through 10. You know, Odo's at the end of the day, he's a professional. He may not like the guy, but he does his job and he prides himself. You know, he's one of the characters, especially in Trek, that identifies the most, in my opinion, with his career, with what he does.
Here's the thing.
One of the same.
Here's the thing about Odo, though. He doesn't necessarily tell everybody he couldn't have done it. He doesn't pronounce like, "Oh yeah, there's no way I could have done it." He always says, "There's no way you could know that I'm not that kind of person. You don't know me, Commander." And
well, I think
it's a very alien kind of response.
I think it shows the mistrust between him that he still has for Cisco. Like Cisco, in his view, hasn't proven that he should be in charge, right? He just inherited Cisco, and that's just another commander in a long line of commanders he has to deal with. So I don't know if it's apathy or just he just doesn't care, but that's how I interpret it.
I think he was kind of insulted. To me, it felt like he was insulted that this guy would say this. It was like, your word, like, you don't know me. Why would you say that? This is like a meaningless thing to say to me. It was just kind of it was like a virtue signal almost. He was calling him out for virtue signaling about his like faith in Odo.
Yeah.
When they had just had that kind of like back and forth about justice as well.
Well, he had also talked to Bashir about, was it Bashir in the room where he said that only a shapeshifter could have gotten in?
Yeah, he says that. He says that only a shapeshifter, or he says like a shapeshifter was like probably like the main possibility.
But we find out later in the episode why that line happened, right? Because they didn't expect anyone else. They only had the one record of the person going into the room, into the hollow room. It was just that person, right? Based on the handprint and whatnot. So we find out it gets tied up at the latter part of the episode. Like, okay, that makes sense. Why he said it was one shapeshifter, or a shapeshifter would have been the person who could have come in, because they weren't thinking of what happened at the end of the episode when you find out how the guy how it was all pulled off.
I'm still kind of confused by that. I don't think they tied that up very well, because we'll just jump to that right now.
Okay. Well, so the guy's the clone, right?
Right.
I mean, if you hit the panel to enter, it records that person with that DNA going into the room. So you have one entry.
But if you remember, Bashir says that clones have a different type of degenerate marking.
The chromosomes. Yeah, but it requires. But you saw it required a more extensive scanning. So I would not assume that the panels would have those extensive scanning. It would just have very basic, okay, this person opened the door, it's 99% positive.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like once he figured out that it had like the degenerative DNA, he would have, and it matched the DNA of the clone that they were creating. He would have gone back and seen if the other DNA that he had would have matched. I just feel like he's that professional.
I don't remember that when they made that correlation that they even discussed that who was in there again, right? They just went
Right.
straight to it was a clone.
I know that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm saying like they could have like if they had once they figured out that the degenerate DNA was the clone, then they could have found out that like the degenerate DNA didn't match like the real Ibadan's DNA, right? Because the whole assumption is that they weren't able to figure out who did it because all they had was the Ibadan's DNA, and that was it. And they had the door opening in and out. But then they explain that later that there's a marker for clones that differentiates you from a non-clone.
No, that's true.
I'm nitpicking here. I'm super nitpicking. Like,
I mean,
you're becoming a true Star Trek fan, though. Congratulations. We'll bring you
when
over
they
to
did
Star
the
Wars.
when they did the Scooby Doo ending.
Oh my god, that was amazing.
Yeah,
Just like, what?
I didn't think about
It
that.
was the professor all along. I mean, yeah, it was kind of like tried to wrap it up really quickly because, like, there wasn't really an explanation of his prior contact in the holding cell was that other person. I know it was like briefly touched upon when in his conversation with Quark, but there was no further conversation to make that conclusion. And I think if you had that, it would have wrapped it up a little bit nicer. Or like a scene like Quark coming up to Odo and saying, I've heard some information about a very important subject that might be relevant to your investigation.
He hands him
and then
the
cut
thing.
out,
He hands him the clipboard, which I assume has the guy's name on it or whatever.
But real talk, compared to other early Trek episodes with different series, this is one of the better. This is one of the ones with the least amount of plot holes in it. Like, it was wrapped up decently well. Unlike, I don't know, Code of Honor maybe made no sense. Why did they need Wakanda vaccines for a different planet? But that's another conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we're just being a little nitpicky here.
Yeah, we're being nitpicky here.
That's
good though. But that's Star Trek talk though, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you are talking like seasoned Trekkies. It has to be nitpicky. We don't know where the warp core and why it only goes out if the captain says these certain magical words. I mean, this is great. Keep it up.
So I think what you were saying, Don. I was a little confused by the ending too. He talks about some other guy. That was like the clone scientist, but then it's actually Ibadan who's like Mission Impossible, his mask. I didn't understand that either.
Yeah, and then I didn't understand when he investigated the ship log to find Mr. S. Lamone.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just So Ibadan showed up as Ibadan, we assume, on Deep Space Nine, and then he did a Mission Impossible mask, and then booked passage on that other ship as what is his name, Lamone?
Lamone S. Which is
Super
weird
French,
because it's
too.
like
Yeah.
when I first saw that guy, I thought he was the dude from the previous episode that was telling Cisco that the prophet was waiting.
That's
Like,
why I thought it was too at first.
I guess old
And then I
white
feel
guys
like they
look alike.
changed his. I feel like they changed his look though, from the beginning of the episode to the end. He looked different to me. Maybe it was the hood was covering him up or something. But he looked like the prophet, the guy who was trying to get Cisco to go speak to the prophets from the emissary episode.
Maybe they did change it mid episode.
Yeah, I have to go back and look at that one.
The showrunners are like, this guy looks too much like the other guy. We gotta put like C. Thomas Howell in there or something like that.
All right, so let's talk about like the core of this episode here to wrap it up, which I think is like the core of the episode. So you get the Cisco makes the decision to remove Odo from the case when they all the evidence is pointing to the fact that it could only be a shapeshifter, or that is their like main lead. And then he decides to remove Odo from the case. He brings him into his office, and then removes him from the case, and that sets off a chain of events that lead to Odo being targeted by this mob. So we kind of before we get him to being targeted by the mob, he's kind of looked at as like an outcast. He's immediately shunned by almost everyone. The only person who's really standing up for him is Kira and Quark. His office has been vandalized. There's like no investigation opened after his office is like vandalized. Shifters like written on the wall. Everything is like,
that was the word.
Yeah, shifter.
I couldn't
It was like,
tell.
yeah, it took me a little bit to figure it out, but that's what I figured it out. And then he goes to the bar, and everyone just like walks away from him like immediately when he sits down. And then Quark comes to him after to like give him the information about like helping. He's the only one who's like, "You want someone to help with this?" and asks him about that. And then when he leaves the bar, the mob has like gathered and is like chasing him, and he has to like barricade himself in a room, and then it takes a little bit, but Cisco eventually begins like deploying security. I think Kira deploys some security right away, and then Cisco eventually goes down and has the security armed and attempts to disperse the crowd, which easily does after he fires the phaser. And he doesn't easily do it, but he gives a speech too. What does he say? Did I write it down? Yeah, he says, "Do not condemn him because he's different." I think is what he says. Is part of what he says.
And then they respond, "We condemn him because of the evidence."
Evidence, right?
And then he responds, "Then bring that to a court."
Right.
What you want here is not justice.
Right.
What you are doing here is out of fear, out of anger.
Right, and the only evidence that they had was that they didn't have any evidence that it was actually him. It was just this theory that the only person who could have been in that room was a shapeshifter, and that's it. And we had already seen this mob kind of confront. So yeah, I guess I skipped over this too. So the mob and this one Bajoran had already confronted Cisco and Kira, and were like, I guess they were. I don't remember what they were. I think they were asking to remove Odo from his job, which I found interesting because they were trying to like get rid of the police, because Odo is like the top cop, and they were trying to get rid of the cop over a assumed crime that he had committed when in fact he didn't commit the crime at all, and he was framed for it. So yeah, I just found that like really interesting. I liked how Cisco did kind of promote this idea of like, take it before the court of law. Let's seek out justice. And then right after that, when the guy says, after you said find it in a court of law, Bashir shows up as well, and he's like, I have new evidence that could change everything. And to me, it was almost very reminiscent of a lot of these things we've seen in real life, where you have these rush to judgments based off of like these edited clips, and people are like condemned immediately, and then it's like, oh wait, there's this other piece of evidence that tells you a lot of a different part of the story. Let's look at that. So yeah, I thought that like really, it was really interesting watching this in today 2020, when it was a show from the 90s, and it's still very relevant to what's happening in our society today. Yeah, Spencer says, seems particularly relevant. Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yahtzee says Odo had received a lot of shifterism since joining Tarek Noor. Probably didn't start an investigation to the vandalism's office because it didn't accomplish anything under Cardassian rule. I don't know if that's is that explored later on. I don't know if I really.
I mean, some of the mistrust because he was working for Cardassians does get highlighted here and there, but honestly,
Right.
I don't remember a lot of it. It just does get mentioned though.
The mob leader makes it a point when he's talking to his buddies at Quarks that he was the head of security under the Cardassians as well. Like, why is he still here? We're in charge now, kind of thing, and we don't want the same guy to be in charge there.
See, the thing that I was starting to pick up on is Odo had served under the Cardassians and the Bajoran and the now he's serving under Federation. But Kira hates the Cardassians. So her being kind of quiet during this whole episode was kind of weird because I would think she would have some sort of like agency of like I have my own opinion on all of this. I think this guy's kind of like a hero to me because he killed Cardassians while the whole thing was going on with the Bajorans. I don't know.
Who killed? Are you saying Odo killed Cardassians?
No. That one dude.
Oh, Ibadan.
Istanbul. Yeah, Ibadan.
I don't think she was. I mean, yeah, she didn't have a bigger role to play as what she did during the Emissary, where she was kind of in charge and showing strength against the Cardassians. But
Spencer might be right too.
But she does. I mean, she does order the other Bajorans to like get the hell out of the office when they try and railroad Odo, and then she also does speak up when Sisko is saying that he's going to relieve him of command, and she's like, he's the most honorable man I know. Like, there's no way he did this. Are you actually like trying? And then he was just like, it's a conflict of interest. He needs to be removed.
No, that's kind of interesting because she does have a little bit more. She's less of a person of her national pride and more about her intrapersonal relationships. She'll protect those more than her national pride, I believe. And I think I see that in a later episode, and I wish Jorge was still here. So
yeah, he had to drop out. He had a call to go to. Yeah, we'll probably get into that a little bit more later. I don't know if I just found it really interesting that she was not caving to the mob, even though it was a Bajoran mob, seemingly Bajoran mob. I think there was a couple other aliens. The ones that went to the office seemed all Bajorans. We did see a little bit more alien mix in the mob that wanted to like go get Odo and like literally lynch him. They like make a joke about that. The guy says like, "What would you do if you got your hands on him?" And then the guy says, "He's right. Like, how would a rope fit around a shapeshifter or whatever?"
Shapeshifter, yeah.
Yeah. So he like makes a joke about it, and it's just like, holy crap! Like these people, like, so that makes the point that they were trying to like kill him. Like that's what they were trying to do. But yeah, I really like this episode. I recommend folks watch it if you haven't already. Definitely a really good episode. Very relevant in what's going on today. I think it's a timeless episode. I think like what we're talking about, it's relevant today, but that's because it's timeless because it's talking about these timeless issues like justice, trial,
conflicting values,
morality. And then it also like conflicting values with the school and the different kids coming to the school. And then it's also just like a good like murder mystery too, with a Star Trek twist to it.
With a Scooby-Doo twist at the end.
Yeah. Mission Impossible, man. Scooby-Doo probably fits better. So I guess we'll just wrap it up here. What was your favorite part of this episode?
My favorite part, I think it would be O'Brien and Keiko getting a role and a larger, hand in what's going on in the Star Trek universe. Because I think from what I remember, TNG didn't dive into those characters as much as the other, the main characters, the ones that were closer to the bridge. But for this one, it's nice that the engineering department gets a little love, and the wife of the engineering department gets a little love.
Yeah. Okay. I think that I like that part too. I did like that, especially when he gives her the bell. I like that part.
Yeah.
That was a good part for me. I think my favorite part was I actually liked Odo's speech to Cisco. He's talking about justice and that quote unquote justice change, the laws change, but justice remains the same. And the idea that that there is this kind of unfallible idea of justice, and that laws aren't always just. I kind of like that. That was probably my favorite part. And then just behind that was Cisco telling the mob off. I like that part too. What was your least favorite part?
That wrap up at the end. There was a lot of stuff that was going on behind the scenes that maybe needed to have maybe 1 or 2 seconds of scene time to explain it, or to like infer that something else was going on behind the scenes to wrap it up that neatly. But yeah, I would have appreciated a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think that was probably. I mean, we kind of talked about that quite a bit earlier. Yeah, I think that was a big issue for me too. Aside from that, I don't think there was anything really. Nothing really stands out as like super horrible. Or like really stands out as like, holy crap, that was so cringe, or that was just, what were they thinking, moments. But yeah, I think it could have been wrapped up a little bit, maybe explain the science a little bit more with the clones and the ship manifests and stuff like that. But yeah, otherwise, I think it was pretty good. I do wanted to point out, I really did like another thing I really liked. I really liked Quark and Odo's relationship and the back and forth that they had. And when Odo, Odo being the alien that he is, he cracks a joke, but Quark is like, is he cracking a joke? I don't know. I don't think so. He's like, would you like a shapeshifter in your business?
Right.
And it's just
I was like, what?
If you thinking, it was really funny. If you think it was actually hilarious, because while Odo's been like suspended, he's basically like offering to he's basically saying he's going to infiltrate Quark's establishment to like expose him as this criminal gangster. And Quark is like, he's like thinking about it, and he's like, no,
you almost had me.
Yeah, he's like, you almost had me, but no. And it's kind of, it's really, I really like because he's like, Quark or Odo is like, I've made you a better criminal. Quark's like, yes, you have.
You have.
Like, I am a criminal, and you made me better. So I just like the honesty there, and like the rivalry, but the rivalry that like kind of creates a friendship too
between the cop and the robber.
Yeah, you see a little bit of that friendship. It's like Tom Hanks. I guess Heat. But
Robert
I was thinking
De Niro and forget the
I was
other guy's
thinking
name.
I was thinking more Catch Me If You Can with Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio, and Hanks is Jason, and then he obviously recruits him into the FBI, and he becomes a cop too. But yeah, so I think it was a really good episode. I mean, Deep Space Nine is really good so far, so I'm looking forward to the next episode, and we will be back next week. So just to clarify, we are doing primarily on these Trek Tuesdays reviewing Deep Space Nine right now, but we will, if there is new Trek news, we will be covering that here as well. We'll maybe dedicate like 10-15 minutes to this, and then continue with our review. So it's kind of like a place where we can just talk about Trek. It's not just specifically us reviewing Deep Space Nine. That's just kind of where it is right now. with with there isn't really any kind of Trek news happening right now because
Well, it's a good bar to set it to. I mean,
yeah.
if we're seeing this kind of level, then anything else that comes out, we're kind of gonna expect it to, at least try to reach up to what that was. From what I understand from Jorge and Phil when he was with us there, they talked about some of the new Trek, and it was
Yeah.
failed,
I-
miserably failing.
Yeah. I've heard nothing good about Picard or Discovery.
Discovery.
Or even the short treks that they did. I've heard those are not good either. But yeah, so we will be back next Tuesday. We do this around 3 p.m. Eastern time. We do our Trek Tuesday. So thank you all for joining us, and we will be back next Tuesday. As far as other shows that we are doing, we have Bounding Live, which will be tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's where we kind of talk about the big headlines of the week. And then on Fridays, we do our anime rewind. We're currently reviewing Mobile Fighter G Gundam, and I think we're on episode 8, and I do that with Spencer. You can see him in the chat there, Kabuto Rider. That's Spencer. And then we'll probably be doing some more. I think we're going to be doing Gibiate. I think we decided we're going to be reviewing Gibiate when that comes out on Crunchyroll, and we'll be doing that the day that comes out. I have to look it up when that comes out, but we'll be doing that as well, and we'll figure out a time for that. So thank you all for joining us, and we hope you have a great day, and we will see you next Tuesday for Trek Tuesday, and hopefully you'll join us for Bounding Live on Wednesday.
Tomorrow. Lots going on.
Yes, tomorrow. Thank you guys, and have a great weekend, and if we don't see you, have a happy 4th of July as well for everyone here in the United States.
Oh, that's happening, huh?
Yeah, that's this weekend. So have a good one, guys.
All right.